Okie dokie, today we will be discussing the Silk Road, which is the beginning of Chapter 12. If you can tell, Chapter 12 is all about the Silk Road, which should be pretty obvious. Alright, the first thing you need to know is that it does not matter what time period we're talking about. There are a few elements that shape trade routes and exchange networks. And this was true in the Silk Road days. This is Roman Empire time, classical period, and it's still true in 2015, and it was true in 2600 BC when they built the pyramids, and it will probably still be true in, like, I don't know, 3875. So, first thing that shapes trade networks is the climate. Think about this guy. If I tried to use that method of transportation in St. George in August, it would not help me very much. It would not be effective. So climate affects how things trade. Likewise, this guy. If we just traded these two places, both of them would go out of business. The method of what you trade depends on the climate. So do the goods that you trade. Second is location. So this city that it just pointed to, see that beautiful arrow? That's New Orleans, or as they say there, N'Arlands. I know I don't really say it the way they say it, but whatever. Is this a better trading city than, say, Billings, Montana? The answer, of course, is yes, and the question is why, which I would ask you if I could talk to you, but since I'm recording this and you're going to watch it in the future, it's kind of weird. It's like time travel. A little random today. So, Billings is not as good a trading city as New Orleans, and the reasons are simple. It's a better trading city because it controls the entire network, the entire routes coming on here. Now let me find my pen. Not only does it have access to the ocean, which you already figured out, but it also controls the trade. This one's not quite as obvious. For all of these rivers that go all the way up and about, and now my knowledge of geography fails, and anyway, it goes up there. Remembering Lewis and Clark. That control of all of that trade makes it a better city. So location is very important. Salt Lake eventually becomes a huge trading center because the railroads allow things to go from place to place all along this area. And I told you why. Next comes the type of trade goods. These people in this grass hut probably don't have a lot of need for an Xbox 360. Now, you could say they don't know what they're missing, or you could say, oh, good for them. But either way, the type of trade goods is one of those things. These people are not interested in one of these. For good reason, and I probably cannot interest you in the building plans for a grass hut. Ethnicity is next. If I look at this guy, you probably don't wear clothes like this here in Brigham City. You don't wear a turban. Turbans are from people called Sikhs, which I probably spelled wrong. And of course there's this. Hopefully this doesn't start a new fad, but there probably is not a big market for face pokey sticks. I probably can't go to the commons area and say, hey, I've got these face pokey sticks. And so your background, your ethnicity affects what you're interested in as far as trade goods go. Now, second big topic is that the Silk Roads open up new trading opportunities. And the first way they do that is they have new technologies. The best and the most important of these new technologies is the caravanserai. Sometimes this is spelled with a Y instead, caravanserai. But honestly, doesn't this look so much cooler? Yes, it does, and that's why we go with that pronunciation. Now, this is the courtyard, essentially, and this, of course, is the gate, which you already figured out because it looks all gatey. What you do is you come in there, we'll go up to this drawing, you come in through the gate, and you can there are places to keep your animals, like in the enormous courtyard, and you could put your trade goods in different places, and then of course there are rooms that you can rent out. It is a big motel, but if you didn't know, a motel is a motor hotel. Motor hotel, right? A caravansary is a caravan hotel, and that's what it is. It's an inn. And you can think of the advantage automatically. These puppies, these walls keep out bandits, and they make things safe. Now the second thing, oh my goodness, I gotta make that go away. Erase all ink, thank you. The second thing, the second big advantage, or the second big technology that comes is a maritime technology. Remember, maritime is in marine, so marine means having to do with the water. They learn how the monsoon winds go. So in one season, in the winter, the monsoons blow in this direction, and in the summer, they blow in the other direction. Now, if you are, or this way, if you're coming from Africa, if you live in Africa, there we are, hello Africa, you are tiny on this very crudely drawn map. If you live in Africa, you know when you can go and trade and when you have to stop, and so it's a beautiful thing for you. The knowledge of the monsoon winds enables you to trade. Now, this is one of those things. When they trade, they get new technology. And when they get new technology, it opens new trade routes. And so it kind of goes around and around in a circle. But here's what you've got to understand here. There are new cities that become newly important as new technologies open up. Just like Salt Lake City became more important, or Ogden, probably more precisely, became more important with railroad technology and wasn't very important when people were traveling exclusively by river. As people start to make this trek along the Silk Road network, these cities become more important. These cities become more important. These cities become more important. Where before it was other cities, and after it will be different cities still. Now, right in this place called Jordan, right about here, there's a city called Petra. And that's a great example. This is the city of Petra. And you've seen this before. You've seen, as a matter of fact, this building, because that's where Megatron did something. I can't keep track of those Transformer movies, things explode, or where Indiana Jones found the Holy Grail. In reality, they are buildings that are carved into the rock by their ancestors. And so if you're a tourist, you can go there and see it. You could check it out. In actuality, this building looks an awful lot like a big cave. It's not really awesome. It doesn't have a secret background and this really nifty seal that you can't take the Grail across. But the thing that's important is Petra. Petra becomes an important trading city because once you get the goods here, you can take them south, you can take them on the Euphrates, and all of this comes here for channeling into, it's not the Ottoman Empire yet, the Byzantine Empire. Now we'll make that disappear again. Now all my writing makes no sense. Not that it made sense before. You also have new routes. Ocean-wise, they're going between Africa and India. Because why? Hopefully that's right. Because they now have knowledge of monsoon winds. There's also a cool one where they're going between Mesoamerica, like Mexico, and the Andes Mountains. Now, when people get goods, they change the way they use them. And the more they have, the more use people get out of them. If it's rare and special, they don't use it as much. But if it's always available and you know there's more, you start to use it a bunch more. The best example of this is spices. Now, we get spices, you know that it's food. But it isn't just food, it's ability to show that you are better than your neighbor. It gives you bragging rights. Your neighbor comes over and says, hey, I've got all this great food, try this. And you try it and you're like, oh, what is that flavor? And they say, it's paprika. And then I forget who was saying what, but whoever has the spice says, look at this, it's so fancy, it's so special. Look at how awesome I am that I can have this. And who the other person is duly impressed. Perfumes, same kind of thing, and of course medicines. Now, next big topic. They don't only exchange goods on trade networks. They trade other things too. Unfortunately, one of the biggest things they trade is disease, and this is going to be really important in a few chapters where we see the plague. First, a pathogen is what gives you the disease. What we usually just sum up using the term germ. So think of it that way. The disease pathogen is the germ. Now, when you get a lot of pathogens, you get a lot of germs cruising around an area, and you get a lot of people sick, in a small area, it's called an epidemic. Epidemic diseases they can be nasty, they can be very mild. Now, if an epidemic spreads across, pan means across. If an epidemic spreads across a huge area, then it becomes a pandemic. Pandemics can be worldwide, and they can be super nasty, and they can be really mild. Now, in Han China, it's going to, in this time period, it's going to make them incredibly sick. And they're going to lose a lot of power that they had before. Now, religiously speaking, moving on here. Give me just a sec. Let me make sure I covered that well enough. Yeah. The disease allows foreigners to move in after the fall of the Han. And that's everything you've got to know about that. Okay. Now, the other thing trade networks allow is the spreading of religion. Christianity spreads from the area it begins, which of course is right in here, spreads all the way across along the Silk Roads, and really has a huge impact here, where another religion is founded kind of based on it. And then it also spreads down into this area. We'll talk about those Christians later. And of course, it's primarily going to spread up along these trade routes. As a matter of fact, if you look at this really closely, that pretty much mirrors the journeys of Paul, those trade routes there. Hinduism, of course, begins in India, but this one's going to cruise down into this area. And there's a lot of times, and along the sea routes too. Now, there's a lot of times that the AP test asks you where such and such a thing in Southeast Asia was impacted by, and the answer is India. They're hoping that you know this, and that religion affects architecture. Last but not least, Buddhism will come out of India and over to China. At first it isn't popular. It's going to be huge later, but we'll talk about that when that time comes. And that, my friends, is all you need to know.